to the farm. I'm Katja Williams, the Rural Mum, and today we're talking to Jen. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're talking, so you've married the farmer, now what? So Jen, tell me a little bit about yourself, the farming operation, and your husband.
Yeah, well, my name's Jen McCutcheon and I moved here almost 5 years ago. I am originally from Bathurst, so grew up in the country but not off a farm. I guess you could say I was a townie. Studied journalism at Charles Sturt University, went off to get a cadetship with the ABC and spent the next 11 years working in Canberra and Sydney. I was a NRL reporter for a long time, covering TV, and so I met my now husband, 5 years ago in Mudgee. I was looking to move to Mudgee, and I guess you've got to be careful what you put out to the universe, because I said I want to meet a man in Mudgee, which I did. He just wasn't from Mudgee, but that's okay. I wouldn't have life any other way. So we were dating, and I knew that ABC had a Dubbo office, so I was able to come and do some work in the Dubbo office. And then, everything just sort of fit together, and I moved out here permanently in September 2018. And we got married on the eve of the pandemic, had a baby during COVID. Yes, it's been quite a wild ride. I've lived through drought, floods, mouse plagues, farm renovations. So we live about 20 kilometres west of Gilgandra towards Collie Warren, which is a beautiful part of the world.
Yes.
And we have a mixed farming operation, so sheep and crops. And then my husband's father also has cattle on his property as well.
Beautiful.
And he, at the moment, he's a part-time teacher, part-time farmer, with the vision to hopefully, weather dependent, move towards a full-time farming operation down the track in the next sort of 5 years. He'd do it tomorrow, but baby steps.
Little steps. Yeah, no, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
If you do hear some babbling and bits and pieces going on, we do have baby Caroline here with us today as well. And before we continue on with today's episode, I would like to give a shout out to this interview's supportive links. This interview's supportive links is Amazon affiliates. You'll find anything that has been mentioned in this current video, as well as previous videos that we use that you may find helpful in those links. And now on with the video. Where do we want to go? So on a daily basis, Jen, can you tell me your involvement with the farm and what your life looks like?
Yes, well, at the moment, while I'm working for ABC in Dubbo, my commute's about 50 minutes each way, so 85 k's, which was pretty good when I didn't have a baby, but now with a toddler and being pregnant again, it's quite the challenge. I'd love to work from home, but unfortunately with news, you have to be on the ground when news breaks. So, so basically, I don't do a lot on the farm. I say I'm the food and beverage manager and the activities coordinator. Obviously when we're sowing and harvesting, making meals and that kind of thing. And then much to my husband's, love and discomfort, I like to go away on a holiday. I'm like, we joke and I always say, I moved my life 6 hours to be here, and so I do love to go on a holiday. So we just got back from a week in North Queensland, which was lovely. However, that was our honeymoon that we were meant to take 3 years ago. So it's not like we do that sort of lavish holiday every year. And my family has a bit of a tradition to go to the northern beaches of Sydney every Christmas. So my mum's family's been doing that for over 60 years. So
wow.
We have continued that on. So I think that's one of the important. It's hard to get farmers off the farm, as you know, and that driving out the gate's the worst part. But once you're on holidays, and I recently did a story saying actually productivity does improve if you have a break. So it is important to take a break if you can. Of course, as we know, the conditions haven't been very helpful over the past 5 years, but I like to make sure those plans are in place, and that there's money set aside for that and that kind of thing. But so I work Mainly day shift. Sometimes I do early shift, but since having Evie, I haven't been doing as much crazy shift work, which is handy. 4:30 starts aren't the most fun. And yeah, so we sort of do everything now, digital, radio, TV. So I'm in the office there, and obviously I'll be taking maternity leave soon. But yeah, so trying to be a bit more organised, pack lunches the night before, you'd be the same. Being on top of things, having your outfit laid out for the day. I work 3 days a week, so I usually start Tuesday, today, with hair and makeup, properly dressed. By tomorrow I'll probably be dressed with my hair done, no makeup, and then by Thursday I'll get to the office with no hair and makeup done. But it is what it is, and I'm very lucky to have been able to transfer my career here, so I can still be working and be on the farm at the same time.
Yeah. And so going back to a little bit of what you have said, so what is your favourite meals to take down the paddock during harvest?
Oh, that's tricky. I'm no tractor snacks. Camilla's a good friend of mine. She's amazing. She provides me with a lot of inspo. I'm more like a ham and cheese sandwich kind of girl. What are some of the other things? Just things you can eat with a fork. Fried rice. One-handed, stir fries, beef strog. I'm a big slow cooker fan, especially now. One of my colleagues, Juanita Phillips, who reads the news in Sydney, she wrote a book once about how the slow cooker saved her when she had kids and a busy life in Sydney. So, it sort of followed me out here. So, something you can put on at the beginning of the day and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's I'm naughty on my snacks. I'm just there's sometimes a big box of chips in the cupboard and that kind of thing, and a pizza scroll or a cheese and bacon roll from the bakery is always my backup if I'm not organised enough. But try to do what we do. I just more enjoy getting out and going visiting and make sure there's always like some chocolate coconut slice or something to go in the bags as well.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
I'm very lazy.
And then do you have a handful of tricks up your sleeve that you like to try and use when you do try and get off farm? Like, do you have anything that you try and get done to make it an easier transition for everyone to just get in the car?
I just book the holiday and say, this time I actually booked the holiday and went, you can come or you can stay, because obviously last year we were still sowing in June, so it was so different, whereas this year I was like, I just really want to get away, and I wanted to go on a flight before my daughter turned 2, and you forget though a free flight pre-2 means no seat, and with a big belly and someone who just wants to be on mum, it was quite the experience. But just making sure I tend when we're packing up to go away to make sure everything's packed, done the night before. Hubby just packs his bag and then he's in charge of loading the car and off we go. But yeah, no, it's I think everyone experiences the same thing, and growing up my parents do everything together. I think so obviously it's a different lifestyle out here, so a lot of advice my friends have given me is just like, just book it and you go, and I've seen them, so I'm prepared to go away sometimes by myself, but I think once it's booked, my husband was pretty keen to come along as well. And it's just a shame. I was the same. I don't know if you've seen the Bluey Relax episode. It took me a long time I'm like, I am chilly. I cannot relax. And I think the two of us finally found our groove on day 6, and we flew home after a week. Nice. So a few of my friends also have said, it's a 10-day minimum. You've got to wind down. And I was even talking to my mother-in-law, and she was saying they used to go away for 3 weeks at Christmas and would take her dad a full week to kind of snooze, catch up. Then he'd start to come out of, after, because they just work so hard. So it does take you a while to wind down, but 2 weeks of luxury accommodation isn't always possible. So if I was a shame I didn't win Powerball, because I would have gone straight back to Queensland, because it was 28 degrees every day. And I've got about since I came home, and our baby's got the daycare cough, so it's just it'd be nice to be able to just hop up there whenever you can. But
disappear again.
I'll take it when I can get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jen, what was the biggest hurdle that you found or surprise when you moved to the farm?
Well, I guess it's definitely not McLeod's daughters or Farmer Wants a Wife. And my husband, he was very good. He was always very straight up with me. You know, I dated a lot of Sydney boys, and I was like, I just want a country guy. And I guess he was very upfront with me from the beginning. He was like, my life is on the farm. I'm 4th generation. My children will be 5th generation. You know, I know your life is in Sydney, but if this is something you want, these are sort of my ground rules. And I really liked that. I was like, great, we know where we stand. And now every time I sort of am like, I moved all this way. He's like, you knew. So I guess it is nice to know that, you know, I did come in a terrible time, and I haven't had the greatest 5 years, but there's been beautiful, beautiful times as well. And I guess that's probably the biggest surprise I found out here. You worry about isolation and that kind of thing and being a long way from your friends. But I was already used to travelling, having grown up in Bathurst and living in Canberra. I would often drive to Sydney for different things to catch up with people. So the biggest surprise out here was what an amazing community and group of friends I was able to find. And, you know, you through this program, and you would have come across some amazing women. But yeah, it was just amazing to have this core group of friends so quickly.
Yes.
I guess that's what I probably missed living in Canberra and Sydney is I had my uni friends there and that, but you know, you wanted that sense of community. When I lived in Sydney, I was a North Bondi surf lifesaver because you just wanted that sense of community and belonging to something. And I think, you know, even my parents say that because they spend a lot of time out here. They're like, and Bathurst has become quite a big place. They say we feel more like locals in Gilgandra than they do in Bathurst because they can walk downtown and they bump into people they know. And, you know, I mentioned Cam earlier. She sort of says she did the hard work for everyone. She was the first girlfriend in.
Yeah.
And all the boys, you know, were single, and then I was the last one in, so I kind of benefited from all their hard work, and I had this beautiful group of friends who have been really kind to me, and you know, they're always on the other end of the phone, you know, when you're like, I don't understand this, or what do I do with this, or how do I approach this, and especially navigating, you know, droughts and mouse plagues, it's really good to know you're kind of all in it together. And I've also joined the CWA, which is lovely out there. We've got
such a strong community out there.
Yeah, and then and coming through, I guess, the Buy from the Bush era as well, and seeing all through the pandemic. I guess that's one of the perks of it was that people migrated back to the country. We've got these amazing creatives and people doing wonderful things in the bush now, and you kind of feel like, you know, you can pop to Trangie for a shopping trip, or you can nip over to Canamble, and you feel like when you step into these stores that you're stepping into a store in Paddington or Double Bay or that kind of thing. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So I think that was one of my biggest surprises, was just how amazing the community is out here, and how wonderful and welcoming people are. It wasn't cliquey at all, which I thought maybe it would be.
That's such a nice surprise.
Yeah, it was. Plenty of hurdles. We'll talk about them later, but
you sort of summarised some of them too already.
Definitely don't recommend renovating in the middle of a mouse plague, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, because that does come up in a little bit later. You were mentioning you have such a great group of friends and community. So, and they were giving you advice. So what kind of advice were they giving you?
I guess, you know, because I moved in the middle of the drought, and, you know, I still need to get off weather apps. Like now we've been through drought and we've been through floods, and now it's getting dry again. And my husband actually took my phone off me the other night because I was sitting there glued to the weather app, and they were like, get rid of the weather apps. Like, don't stay on it. And the fact that a lot of them had lived through a drought before, and they're like, it will get better. Like, it's coming. It will turn. Like, we've all been through this, and it'll come. And I guess that's the other thing too, knowing that it will come again. Yeah. Even though we don't want to think about it. And I guess, that was sort of their advice. And to always just talk and keep open communication, especially as we know, farmers and that they can close down. I think it's so important to try to talk about how you're feeling about things as well. And if I need a break, you know, Mudgee's only 2 hours away, and it's like a mini Sydney. Or, you know, if I want to go see my friends, don't be afraid to set some money aside and just jump on a plane. And if you need that fix, if it gets a bit overwhelming. But yeah, I think that's, you know, just, I guess that old adage, keep calm and carry on. And I find farmer's spirit, because I'm like, how do you do this? Like, even now, like, I'm like, is there ever just an easy year, a normal year? But yeah, I guess trying to feed off the positive energy, not the negative energy, because negative energy won't. And I guess another really important piece of advice was, you know, just control what you can control. Like, you can't control the weather. You can't control, my husband tells me that all the time. If it rains, it'll rain. Whether you sit on the weather app and stare at it for 2 hours, you know, that just control what you can control. Don't kind of catastrophize and think way of bigger things. Just look after your circle. And I guess, those, trying to stay within what you can control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to circle back to renovating during the mouse plague, because that sounds like there's going to be some absolute gems in there.
Yeah.
So when did you start renovating, and what were the hiccups along the way?
Yeah, well, it was, so obviously, as you can remember, the drought came with a lot of dust and a lot of dust storms, and we had this sweet little farmhouse, and we looked at building a new house, but we can't have two houses on our block, so we were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I guess that was another nice piece of advice someone gave me during the drought, was keep one room clean. Like, try to just have your one bit of space that you always want to be in. So I guess that's sort of how we started with the renos as well. We just did it bit by bit, and it began off because we were meant to get married on April 4, 2020, and we were already in lockdown by then. So my husband and I actually got married in 12 hours on the eve of lockdown. They said from midnight tomorrow night, weddings will be 5 people. I don't know if you remember the Scott Morrison press conference. Funerals 10. You know, blah blah blah. Everything was shutting. The pub shut. Everyone started shutting down. And I was devastated because I'm a bit of a late bloomer. So I was, 35. I'd waited a long time for my big day, and it was my mother-in-law who actually said, "Why don't you get married tomorrow?" So we managed to get our immediate family together, socially distanced, because it was a weird time because we didn't know. It was all just unfolding before our eyes, kind of thing. So we, so we got everyone together. I got some curried egg sandwiches and salad sandwiches from the local bakery made up for us. I managed to race into Dubbo and get my makeup done. It poured rain that day, so my hairdresser was flooded in, and so I did my own hair, and it was just, but somehow it all came together, and it was a crazy, special, wonderful day. We got married in our family wool shed on my in-laws' property that's over 100 years old. And the photos, thanks to Georgie from Narromine, Georgie Johnson, who came and took those photos, because it was like, almost danger money as well. I was like, now we'll be, and living in the country, you could do things like call people at, I called her at 11 p.m. going, "What are you doing tomorrow?" She's like, "Anything after 2 o'clock, I'm there." And so we just kind of waited for us all to come together. And and we never we were going to have another party down the track, but obviously it hung around for a long time, and then family became a priority. And I was like, unless everyone can be there. So our big wedding, I guess, budget pivoted to reno budget. So sorry for everyone who missed out on a drink at our wedding, but
that's a silver lining.
So my dad was very keen to help renovate the house. He was a teacher as well for 38 years, and he's loved woodwork. So him and Mum said about renovating our laundry. That was the first room we renovated.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember this much dust on the toilet seat during the drought and those big dust storms, and so it was amazing to have that. And they put a shower in there, and then once we had that, then the rest of the house started. But yes, we had a few hiccups along the way. A wall was left off the side of our house for a month or two while in the thick of the mouse plague. I think probably the mouse plague was, to farmers it's probably, I don't know, but to me it was so much worse than the dust. I'd take dust over mice. And I hadn't had a baby yet. Like, for people who had babies during that was horrendous, because we would have mice in the house, and I didn't like baiting because I couldn't stand the smell, because I was, early pregnancy. I think we set traps. I think I caught 32 the night before my 12-week scan, and you're already on edge. I was so nervous, And, I used to joke, I was like, I used to go and sit and have cappuccinos in Double Bay on my way to work, and now I'm emptying out mice into a pail. I was like, what happened to my life? And, as horrible as it was, now we're sitting here laughing about it. It becomes a folklore story that you will tell your kids, down the track. But, some of the stories I'd heard from mouse plagues in the 80s and that of mice getting into babies' cribs and that sort of thing. I was very happy to have had a late July baby, so they kind of dissipated by then, which was nice. But we just sort of tackled it one room at a time, and I really was conscious I wanted to use as many local people, because obviously buy from the bush, and I'd done a great story with 7:30 report on Buy from the Bush when it was just sort of starting, so it was really important to me to use as many local people as we could, so that was really lovely. And we sort of stopped just before we had the baby, and then we got cracking again on sort of the other half of the house. So we didn't take on the whole house at once, but yes, it was a very interesting time in my life, but it's all finished now in time for the next baby.
Yes.
So it's very exciting. And so far, no mice inside. Everything's sealed now. There's brand new windows, and so I'm set for the next drought. I'm sure the dust. It's funny. Every wall we pulled off would come with this plume of orange dust with it, and you were just like, oh, it's the ghost of dust storms past. But it was well worth it, and you can see why people renovate. Yeah. Because if money wasn't an option and time wasn't an option, time wasn't a worry, it is amazing how you can. I look at the before and after photos, and it just amazes me to see. And we didn't spend huge silly amounts of money. But it is amazing to see, and it is pretty cool. Maybe, if you're not living in it at the same time, because, anyway, but we survived. And
I completely understand the mouse smell, because my second was during the mouse plague when I had my second, so I was quite late in pregnancy, and that was my job. Every morning I'd get up and I'd empty the traps, and it's a horrible feeling, it's a horrible job, but I was the same. I didn't want baits near the house. I had a toddler, and I didn't want him to pick them up. And we have, all the work dogs quite close to the house, and the cat and everything. So that was our only option, was to trap and discard.
Exactly.
So Jen, do you have any top tips, tricks, and hacks for mums or anyone who is moving to the land?
I guess, again, it's not McLeod's Daughters, and it's not Farmer Wants Wife. I did apply for Farmer Wants Wife about 15 years ago, so it makes me laugh now. And I sit and watch, and I'm like, oh, you think he's going to move to you on the Gold Coast? There's no way he's leaving the farm to move to you on the Gold Coast. But I guess involve yourself in the community as much or as little as you can. You don't, it's hard because it is a delicate balance, and once you start having kids and that, you've got to make sure you don't overcommit yourself and are prepared to say no sometimes. But saying yes when you first move to a community is wonderful, because it opens up so many doors. I guess if we enter into a drought again, knowing that it will end, that it's not forever, hopefully, and hopefully we get a few normal years. Try to plan holidays, or if you just need some time for yourself or take yourself off to get a coffee, try to make time for friends and that. I guess the pandemic taught us to slow down, but sometimes I think it's easier to just slip in your pajamas. And I used to joke and say, the baby will go everywhere with me. It will fit in with my life. And now I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere after 7 o'clock. I'm like, I just want to be in my bed with my Ugg boots on. But yeah, I guess that's where things like CWA and that hold you accountable to sort of get out of the house and go hang out. And if someone invites you over for a coffee, like say yes, go to long lunches, that was a lot of us haven't caught up for so long, and it was nice to know that at least, we had that event coming up that, that we made time for, because it is tricky when you're juggling bubs and as mums, often the husbands or mums as well are out doing farm stuff, and then you get home and you've got bath, dinner, bed, and then you sort of just collapse on the couch. So trying to make time, because that was a beauty of COVID slowing down, but I think it's taken us a little bit to just get that courage to get back out and make the effort. I guess with the wet season that there is money in mud at least. It seems crazy that we just went from such extremes, and when it was raining and I knew sort of the crops, again I was on the weather apps and I never thought I'd say there'd be too much rain, but trying to think positively about it's filling up dams and it's replenishing ground cover and it's replenishing underwater resources and that kind of thing. And I guess just enjoy it. I don't like it to sound like I don't want it to sound condescending, but life is simpler out here. It's slower. Our kids have space. In COVID we weren't in small apartments, desperate for air, there's a kilometre to our front gate that we could walk along, and so we are so blessed for the life we have out here. And the cities have their challenges as well. They have they have extreme challenges as well, but I guess that spirit of the bush really shines through out here, and that is really lovely. That slower pace of life, I think, is what some of us, and like I said, off the back of COVID, it helped a lot of us slow down, and so I think that's so important as well. Sort of going back to that simpler life and just appreciating the stars,
Yes.
And my husband and I the other week, he just was out doing something, getting something out of his ute, and he's like, come out and look at the stars. And I couldn't remember the last time. We got the deck chairs out, this was before it got cold. We just sat there and we just looked at the stars, and it is amazing, the landscape out here. And when it's green, it is beautiful and lovely. And I'm glad that the drought did end, and I hope we have some fairly chilled normal years over the next little while, but like I said, everyone's in it together, and as long as you've got good people around you, which you do out here, we all support each other and get through it together. Yeah,
I love that you mentioned that sometimes the stars just really stand out.
Yeah.
So during, occasionally we'll go outside and all of a sudden you'll notice the birds. And I'm sure the birds are always there, but occasionally you just think, that's so beautiful, and you just stop and listen.
Yeah. And like when we were away, people were like, oh, you have to go to the animal zoo, to see the kangaroos, and I was like, we have kangaroo, even our daughter sees kangaroos and sheep and cows, and it's beautiful. And, just going for a little drive down to the grandparents' house, is such an adventure, and seeing kookaburras and, like you say, listening, and they can play in the dirt and jump in muddy puddles and have that really beautiful childhood that, we all crave to have. Yeah.
Anything else that you wish you had known prior to moving to the farm?
I guess if you're going to make the leap and come out here, you have to know it's not going to be an easy ride, and there is times where it's all hands on deck, and you're not going to see your husband late at night during sowing, and they kind of go walk about for a while during sowing and harvest, and I'm very lucky because we still live a bit of a hybrid life, so my husband can do daycare pickup on the days he teaches and do bath and bedtime and then go back out to the paddock maybe. Some people I know, they don't see their husbands for a long time. We all become sort of single mothers for a little while. So I guess it's that you do have to work at it. It's not easy. But it is a beautiful part of the world, and it's a beautiful life. But yeah, it's like I said, it's not McLeod's daughters, but it can be, you know, through Instagram some days. And yeah, just take advantage of everything life has out here for you, because and if you do if there's something that you feel you need to go fill your cup up with, go do it. Just do it. Make time.
Absolutely.
When you can in this climate.
Well, thank you very much, Jen, for joining us today here on the farm.
No worries.
Thank you for joining along with us. We hope that you have enjoyed our story that we have covered today, as well as the many tips and tricks that will help you along your rural mum or rural life and moving to the farm. Until next time, thank you very much.